From cursed dolls to creepy carnivals, these Halloween horrors are just the beginning. Join us as we unleash your deepest nightmares. Welcome to Whispers After Dark, where shadows speak and the night listens. Before we start, like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss what waits in the dark. Carnivals are supposed to be fun, cotton candy, flashing lights, and laughter in the air. But sometimes they bring something else with them, something ancient, watching, waiting. This is the story of the carnival master. They say she smells like mothballs and dried roses, like an attic sealed too long, heavy with forgotten things. Her voice is a rare thing, soft, dry, used only to name the chosen. Her eyes are pale gray, not blind but worse, hollow, empty. Her hands look like they belong to something dead, fingers long and brittle, nails yellowed and curling like pressed petals. And when she smiles, it's a crooked knowing thing, cold and final. One smile, one name. Then the child is simply gone. No scream, no struggle, just silence. Because no one dares say no to the carnival master. No one knows exactly when the first Halloween carnival began. Some say it started sometime after the war. Others claim it's always been part of the town. The story shifts depending on who's telling it, but one thing never changes. The carnival only comes to Griswold Elementary on Halloween night. Always the same place, always the same night, and always with the same strange woman. No one knows her name. They just call her the carnival master. Each year, the entire town prepares for it. They hang lights, paint signs, send invitations to surrounding towns. Parents work the booths. The town's children whisper about the costume parade they're not allowed to attend, the one the carnival master always judges. It's the only part she runs herself. The townspeople never refuse to participate, not anymore. They don't talk about that year, not in public, not even in whispers. Long ago in 1949, the people of Griswold tried to stop the carnival. They locked the school gates, canceled the parade, turned away out-of-towners. They were tired of pretending nothing happened, tired of burying empty coffins. But that Halloween, she came anyway. Not in the open, not with her red and black tent, not with her merry-go-round songs or her blood-orange tickets. She came in silence, and by morning, every child in Griswold was gone. You can find the graves in the woods behind the school, row after row of small headstones above empty graves, all marked October 31st, 1949. After that, they built the carnival back up, bigger, louder, brighter. And they invited outsiders, people from nearby towns, travelers, tourists, anyone with children, because the carnival master must choose, and better she choose a child from someone they don't know than take their own. Every year it's the same. Just before sunset on Halloween night, the black and red tent appears. No one sees it come, just like no one sees it leave. There is always food, cotton candy, games, and at the end of the night, the costume parade in the big tent. The children march across the stage as monsters and tiny witches, their parents clapping and laughing. The carnival master stands in the shadows in her floor-length black gown trimmed in tattered red lace, the fabric faded like burned velvet, her collar high, her sleeves too long. Her head is always tilted slightly, as if she's listening to something no one else can hear, and around her neck is a necklace with tiny childlike charms. When the last child passes, she smiles. Just once, and says a name. No one runs, no one screams. The chosen child walks forward like they've been called home, and then they disappear. Some say she takes them into the funhouse. Others say she steps behind the curtain with them, and that's the last anyone ever sees of the child. No one asks questions, no one ever looks, and each year her necklace gets one more charm in the shape of a child. That's why the carnival never changes, why the town never protests. They make it festive, they make it loud, they make sure there are other children for her to choose from, because they know the cost of silence. They know what happens when the carnival master is denied. So if you ever get an invitation to a Halloween carnival in Griswold, If the flyer shows up in your mailbox with no return address and promises a night of family fun, burn it. Don't RSVP. Don't drive into town. And whatever you do, don't bring your children. They say Halloween is when the veil thins. That ancient magic creeps like fog through the cracks in our world. That's when the old stories come to life. The ones whispered around dying fires and worn-out caravans. Some speak of cursed dolls, vessels for vengeance, stitched together with sorrow and sealed by the words of the willing. And if you've ever mocked the kindness of strangers or toyed with the patience of the old and the wild, you'd best beware. Because this is the story of the Gypsy's doll. The house wasn't grand, but it had good bones. A little white farmhouse tucked at the edge of the trees, with creaking floors and warm windows that glowed soft yellow in the fall. Rose White had lived there for decades, a kind old woman with silver-streaked hair and the sort of hands that had held too many people and too many secrets. Her son had bought her the home long ago, before moving away to start a life of his own. And though he died young, along with his wife in a terrible crash, his legacy lived on in their daughter, Annabelle. Annabelle arrived at the farmhouse just after the funeral, a thin-lipped 10-year-old with cold blue eyes and silence like steel. From the very start, there was something off about her. She never cried, never smiled. She spoke in short, sharp phrases and stared too long at the animals. Within a week, the grandmother's cat had gone missing. A few days later, the neighbor's bird bath was found full of broken feathers. Rose tried to soften the child, to raise her with kindness. But Annabelle only grew crueler, feeding on quiet contempt. The townsfolk whispered, the neighbors watched, and the gypsies, those strange traveling people who camped twice a year in Rose's backfield, began to murmur. The gypsies had always been welcome. Rose let them stay on her land, and in return, they brought her trinkets and stories. One of them, an old Romani woman named Mirella, would often come to the porch to drink tea and leave behind odd little tokens, herbs, charms, pressed flower dolls. But Annabelle hated them. She mocked their clothes, snatched bread from their fires. Once she threw rocks at a little boy who offered her a carved whistle. The years passed, and Annabelle grew into something meaner than wild dogs and colder than frost on a grave. By the time she was 17, she ruled the house. Rose, now frail and ill, could barely leave her bed. The girl claimed the land, the house, the money. And when the gypsies came that fall, just days before Halloween, Annabelle met them at the gate. "You can't stay here anymore," she said flatly. "My grandmother's sick. I'm in charge now." Mirella stared at her, unblinking. "We won't stay long. One night, two at most. The wagons can't go farther. Your grandmother would allow it." "She's not in charge anymore," Annabelle snapped. "Nonetheless, we are staying and will leave on All Hallows Eve," Mirella said, and then urged her horses forward. On the night before Halloween, Mirella crept into the farmhouse. She found Rose pale and trembling in her bed, lips tinged with blue. And on the nightstand, beside a barely touched bowl of soup, lay a packet of crushed weeds that smelled of death. "She's poisoning you," Mirella whispered. "That wicked child is feeding you death, slow and quiet." Rose began to cry. "I don't know what to do. I think she means to sell the house once I'm gone." The old gypsy held her hand. "You must choose." "There is still time," she said as she quickly mixed some herbs into Rose's tea. A few minutes later, Rose's color began to return and her breath came easier. "Choose?" Rose asked. "Choose what?" "Say the words. Say, return what was taken in malice. Seal her soul in silence." The fire crackled low. The wind whistled through the chimney. Rose's voice was barely a whisper, but she said it. She said it all. The next day, Annabelle was nowhere to be found. The gypsies packed their wagons and lit their lanterns, and by noon, the field was empty. Feeling stronger, Rose stood in the doorway and watched the smoke trails vanish down the road. And just before she turned back inside, she noticed something strange in the garden, something left behind. It was sitting upright among the marigolds, tucked neatly between the pumpkins. A porcelain doll. But not just any doll. It wore Annabelle's clothes. Long pink pleated skirt, the blue sweater with rosebuds and pearl buttons. The skirt was ripped in the same place she had torn it on the fence and stitched it with red thread. Its eyes were cold and blue, and its hair and face were hers, down to the sneer carved into its porcelain mouth. Around its neck was a tiny tag tied in red thread, and the words, "She'll torment you no more." That Halloween night, Rose locked the doll in a trunk and buried it in the cellar. She never spoke of it again. But sometimes, when the moon is high and the wind rattles the windows, she swears she can hear something scratching beneath the floor. So if you ever meet a strange old woman offering dolls on Halloween, be polite, be kind, and whatever you do, don't take one home. There are places that shouldn't exist, places with bark like bone and hearts full of hunger. And when you wish on those, they give you what you want, but they always take something in return. Be careful what you wish for. This is the story of the Halloween tree. They say wishes are harmless, thoughts whispered into the dark, the soft breath of hope carried off on wind and starlight. But some wishes are heard. They sink into the earth, and sometimes something listens. Something ancient, twisted, with roots too deep and bark too old to forget the cruelty of men. There's a clearing deep in the woods behind the town of Ashbridge. You won't find it on a map, and no trail leads to it. Not anymore. But every 10 or 20 years when Halloween falls on a full moon, people seem to find their way, drawn by something old, something waiting. In the center of that clearing stands a tree, massive, twisted, towering. An old-growth beast with gnarled roots like claws and bark the color of ash. But in autumn, it changes. Its leaves blaze gold and blood orange, glowing like fire under the harvest moon. And when Halloween night comes with a full moon overhead, the tree becomes something more. They call it the Halloween tree. The town knows the rules. On that rare night, everyone who wants to make a wish must bring a small offering, a piece of candy, a bottle of cider, a few coins, or a lock of hair. They line up quietly, one by one, whisper their wish to the hollow knot in the tree's trunk, and place their offering in the roots. And by the next morning, things start to change. Not always how you hoped. Like in '82, when Henry Stratton wished for a life of luxury. He'd worked his whole life at the mill, barely scraping by. The next day, the mill exploded in a gas fire. He survived. Most others didn't. With the insurance payout, he never worked again. Until the day he died, he carried the guilt of the people who perished in the flames. Or 3 years ago, when little Darla Greaves wished she could be the smartest kid in school. She was tired of being second best to her best friend, Naomi. That night, Naomi vanished. No one even remembered her. No one but Darla. Now Darla walks to school alone, makes straight A's, and cries in the bathroom because her wish took away her best friend. And then there was Owen Hale, the frail boy with hollow cheeks and bruises hidden under long sleeves. The others pushed him, slapped him, laughed when he cried. That Halloween, he stood beneath the glowing limbs of the tree and whispered, "I just want to be strong." The next morning, no one laughed. One boy shoved him in the hallway. Owen pushed back, just once. The boy's neck snapped like dry twigs. By the end of the week, Owen couldn't hold a pencil without crushing it. Couldn't hug his grandmother without leaving her gasping on the floor. He got what he wanted. He's strong now, strong enough to break the world, one touch at a time. And there's no way to stop it, not anymore. This year, Halloween falls under a full moon again. The townsfolk already feel it, in the rustling leaves that sound like whispers, in the cold that clings too long to the morning air. They've begun baking pies, filling flasks, wrapping ribbons around silver coins. Some say they won't go this time, that it's too dangerous, too unpredictable, but others are already wandering off the trail, because wanting is a hungry thing, and wishes, well, wishes always come with a price. So if you ever find yourself in a forest on Halloween night, beneath a full moon so bright it turns the leaves to fire, if you see a clearing and a tree that glows in the dark like it's waiting, turn back, no matter how bad you want it. Because the Halloween tree will listen, and it will give you exactly what you deserve. They say some towns are built on secrets, but others are built on something far worse. Bones, promises, blood bargains that don't stay buried. And once a year, when the veil thins and the earth breathes heavy with the dead, the price must be paid again. This is the story of the Grave Feast. In the town of Marrow Creek, Halloween is not a night of candy and costumes. It's a night of debt, of devotion. A night that must be honored, or the dead will remember what was taken from them. At the edge of town, hidden beneath a tangle of cypress trees, lies the old cemetery. No one knows how many bodies are buried there. The records are gone, burned, lost, forgotten. But the town remembers something deeper than paper. They remember what happened the year they didn't show up. That was 1891. The town was small then, and proud. A new mayor had declared Halloween foolish and banned the old tradition of feasting with the dead. He said graves were for mourning, not music. That night, the wind screamed through the trees. Dogs howled until their throats bled, and in the morning, the church bells rang without hands to pull them. Everyone who stayed home was found dead in their beds, faces pale, eyes wide open, mouths stuffed with dirt. Since then, no one skips the grave feast. Each year, as the sun sets on October 31st, the townspeople gather at the cemetery gates. Children carry lanterns shaped like skulls. Elders spread blankets across the cracked tombs. They bring loaves of bread, bowls of stew, cups of sweet wine, and thick syrupy punch. Each grave receives something, even the ones without names. Then the music begins. Old songs, haunting, wordless melodies passed down from mouths that no longer speak. The townspeople dance, circling the graves in slow, weaving steps. The lanterns flicker, the trees seem to lean in, and if you look closely, too closely, you might see figures rising from the earth to join the dance. Not violent, not yet, but watching, waiting, counting the offerings. There are always rules. You must dance until sunrise, you must bring enough food for the dead to feast, and you must never ever stop the music. One year, a teenager named Caleb laughed at the whole thing. He showed up late, brought nothing but a bag of chips, and refused to dance. He left before midnight, still laughing. The next morning, they found him at the edge of the cemetery wall, his mouth torn open in a frozen scream, his feet ground down to bone like he danced himself into the dirt. This year, the sky is clear, the moon is full, the lanterns are lit. The town of Marrow Creek will dance again, because they know what's buried out there isn't resting. It's listening. So if you ever pass through a small town on Halloween night and hear music coming from the cemetery, soft, slow, like bones brushing leaves, don't stop, don't look, and whatever you do, don't interrupt the dance, because the dead are hungry, and the grave feast has already begun. They say some mazes are built to confuse, others are built to trap, but there's one maze you should never enter, not on Halloween, not ever. Because if you looked at it from the sky, you'd see it for what it really is, a web. And at the center of every web, something waits. This is the story of the web and the corn. On the outskirts of Briar Glen, where the corn grows too tall and the soil stays strangely warm, there's a field no one talks about unless they have to. It belongs to old Amos Wexler, a farmer whose land has never failed, not during droughts, not during floods, not even when the blight took every other crop in the county. His corn grows thick and golden, his fields never rot. But every October, Amos does something odd. He cuts a maze, not one for kids or church groups. No signs, no maps, no hayrides. Just a simple hand-painted board nailed to a post at the edge of the highway. Maze of screams, one night only, Halloween. Free admission. No one knows how he advertises it. But every year people come, Out-of-towners mostly, travelers, teenagers looking for scares, the kind of people no one notices missing until weeks later, if ever. Because what they don't know is this: the maze is not a game, it's a feeding ground. At the center of the maze sits her. No one remembers where she came from, not even Amos. But he found her once, deep in the woods as a boy. Just a strange little nest, pulsing like a heart, warm in the frost. He brought her home in a tin bucket and kept her in the barn. She grew fast, too fast. By the time he was 16, she was the size of a calf. When he tried to get rid of her, she spoke. Not with words, not with sound, but with a voice in his mind, wet, whispering, patient. Feed me, or I feed myself. And so he did. One lost animal here, one drifter there. But as she grew, so did her appetite. Now she's massive. Her body is black as coal and slick as oil, packed with legs as thick as telephone poles and a body that shudders when she breathes. She lives beneath the soil at the maze's center, curled up in a nest of old bones and webbing so fine it looks like mist. And if she isn't fed before sunrise on Halloween night, she comes out. And when she comes out, she eats everything. So every year, Amos carves the maze by hand. He shapes it like a spider web, so from above, she knows it's ready. He lights the lanterns, paints the sign, and waits. The maze calls to them. That's part of her power now. She whispers through the stalks, sweet and subtle. Come inside, just a little farther. You're almost through, but no one ever reaches the end. They vanish, one by one. Sometimes he hears the screams. Most of the time he doesn't, and he tries not to listen. This year, Halloween falls under a blood moon. The air is heavy, the corn is too tall. Amos hasn't slept in days. She's hungry already. He can feel her scratching behind his eyes. And he doesn't think she's going to wait much longer. So if you're driving through Briar Glen this Halloween and see a crooked wooden sign pointing down a dirt road, speed up. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't turn. Because once you enter the maze, you're not finding your way out. You're finding her. Thanks for joining us tonight on Whispers After Dark, where shadows talk and the night listens. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next Halloween special episodes from Whispers After Dark. Until next time, sleep with one eye open, and if you hear a knock, don't answer. We'll see you next time if the dark doesn't take you first.